Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the business of sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. My colleagues Damian, Sassower, and Vanessa Perdomo will join later on in the show. Coming up today, we hear from PGA of America CEO Derek Sprague on golf's growing popularity and to unpack the Ryder Cup's intensity, global reach, and behind-the-scenes strategy in one of golf's most iconic competitions.
Well, I think with all the programs that the PGA of America does, helps with the retention in the game, helps with the growth of the game. Since the pandemic, when we haven't used the word social distancing in a long time, but where you could get families together, playing the game together, and we've seen this multi-generational growth, getting the parents and grandparents, getting the younger generation into the game. So we've seen that explosion. We have more golfers today than we've ever had in the game. Close to 28 million people in this country are playing the game. 550 million rounds of golf were played last year.
Derek Sprague recently joined us here at World Headquarters from Bloomberg Power Players New York. The annual event brings together influential voices from the business of sports to identify the next wave of disruption that could hit this multi-trillion-dollar global industry. We'll hear the PGA of America CEO's conversation with Bloomberg Texas Bureau Chief Julie Fine. That and more is on the way on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, football! The college football season is just getting underway, and live on stage at Power Players Bloomberg's Christine Cook spoke with Ryan McCormack. He's Senior Director of Factor and QQQ Equity Product Strategy at Invesco for a conversation on the new possibilities for college athletics. Let's take a listen to a portion of that conversation.
Just to kind of set the stage, can you, as a quick reminder, tell everybody what the QQQ is?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. So Invesco QQQ is an ETF. It's an exchange-traded fund. It happens to be the fifth largest ETF in the world, and it tracks the NASDAQ 100 index, which is made up of the 100 largest companies listed on the NASDAQ exchange, ex-financials. So pretty much a number of different companies that you probably use every day, multiple times a day. Very well-known companies. But it was launched 26 years ago, back in March of 1999, sort of like in the early stages of ETFs in the US. And so in that 26 years, at the time, it was a pretty novel technology, a pretty novel advancement in the world of asset management. And, to see staying power of 26 years, it really has blossomed into this very widely known, very widely utilized ETF and a strategy that has brought, the ability for investors to add growth into their portfolio in a very easy and efficient manner.
You say 99, I immediately think about Y2K, and it's exactly. Good that you made it past all of that and with all this longevity. Well, part of the growth is an investment in collegiate sports. Can you talk a little bit about your partnership with the NCAA and why that's important in your partnership portfolio? Yeah, for sure.
I think in general, the question would probably be well, what is this guy doing at a sports conference, right? And I think, we're the official ETF of the NCAA. We've had that partnership now for a couple of years. Alongside that, we're kind of the official financial literacy partner of the NCAA. We developed a program, How Not to Suck at Money. Originally, it was geared towards the college athlete, but it's for anybody, right? It's for a college age student, it's for a high school age student, it's for a 30, a 40-year-old. It really just emphasizes the basics of where do I start with investing, right? Or how do I tackle credit card debt? It's very approachable questions to try to develop some level of education And with that, that came in conjunction with our sponsorship of the NCAA. So I joked before in our lunch, if you watch the NCAA basketball tournament, if you're watching March Madness, I challenge you to go 90 seconds without seeing an Invesco QQQ commercial. But it's a great opportunity for us to elevate our brand with a whole new set of potential investors, a whole new set of eyeballs, and just a very high profile sponsorship that we're quite proud of.
When you think about financial literacy in that way and the commitment that you all have had, and like you said, it's a variety of age groups. Are there any trends that you see on programs that you all have invested more in there, or need states that have shown up that maybe you've had to pivot to address?
Yeah, so we partner with a number of different schools, and I've been on the road and I've presented with alumni networks at pretty major universities, right? They'll tap a former athlete to come and talk about the importance of financial literacy, or maybe a specific kind of financial question that they've been asked. I would say it's the most encouraging thing is like the appetite for education. Like these are packed rooms with college athletes with stuff a lot better to do than listen to me. But like they are all there showing up and asking very real questions about, where do I start? What do I do in this scenario? And I think alongside like some of those alums, right, like they're drawn to those alumni. They've been in their shoes, they've been in that room, they've seen most of them a fair amount of success. And just the engagement is pretty spectacular. But I would say the one thing that I would really highlight is just like it's the appetite. These are this generation of kids. They want to learn. They want to capitalize on NIL. And I think the fact that there's so much education that is out there, not only through our financial literacy program, but a number of them, it's affording these kids, these athletes, these students access to this information, and they're really taking to it.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about innovation. So earlier this afternoon, you sponsored a breakout session, Innovation and Investing in College Sports. Talk about what role innovation plays in powering a fund like Invesco QQQ and shaping kind of the future for college athletics.
Yeah, I think for Invesco QQQ, like we say that if you invest in QQQ, you're investing in innovation, right? And I think there's a few different layers to peel back on that onion. Like number one, the fact that this strategy was launched way back in '99, like as I said earlier, that in and of itself, that was a pretty innovative product. The ETF ecosystem was pretty innovative at that time. But we kind of look a little bit further, because the companies that are in Invesco QQQ, like generally they seem to be able to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to changing consumer preferences, changing consumer trends. In this case, like wholesale or looking different, or the ability to stay nimble, where these companies look way different today than they did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And throughout that, they've been able to generate very real fundamental growth, right? They've been able to grow sales, they've been able to grow earnings, and that has fueled a halfway decent amount of performance. So that in and of itself is pretty innovative. And then you look at sort of the crossover between sports and some of these names, these technologically oriented names. It's no secret. Any of the programming, everybody was talking about how technology somehow shapes sports. That could be the way that we consume as fans, the way we watch the game, what we have at our fingertips when we're watching the game, the options that we have. Certainly big data, analytics, right? If you look at preparedness, right? Film study, recovery. They need data in an effort to get any sort of edge on a competitor. And then you kind of take it a step further and you look at some of the companies. Well, a lot of these companies that are in this fund are these social media companies. And if you look at NIL and where you can monetize your name, your image, and likeness, I think immediately you get the gravitation over to kind of the world of social media. An easy way kind of get your foot in the door when it comes to NIL and promoting your own brand. So I think the intersection has only gotten kind of more entwined when you look at some of the names within the fund, or technology in general, and sports, right? It's revolutionizing the way that we consume, the way that athletes play, and the way that the game has evolved and grown over the past 20 years. And I feel like we're advancing at a pace that's much faster than at any point between now and 20 years ago.
Well, the other, back to school for all of us with kids in New York today, and the beginning of fall, which I refuse to say it's fall yet because I think we have at least 20 days more, or maybe 18. But college football is officially full swing, right? So let's do some lightning round on college football questions.
Okay.
We ready? All right, everybody. Favorite college football rivalry?
I love Notre Dame SC, but I will never say anything other than Army-Navy.
Oh, very nice. Tickets to the game or home fan cave?
I don't know if I'm in the minority on this, but tickets to the game, I feel like...
We get a show of hands. Who's fan cave at home? And live?
Oh, no.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Live.
I'm proud. See, my friends are all like, no, I'm just going to sit in the basement and kind of relax, and I got my big screen or whatever, but no, you got to be there.
I love the idea of live. I think especially, you talk about innovation, you talk about technology, you're hearing more and more people want the kind of experience of the game, which is very exciting. Okay, early season favorite to win the CFP?
My heart always says Notre Dame, but I mean,
we're sensing a trend.
I gotta stick with my heart. I mean, we got a free look last week. I mean, tough Miami team on the road, but Ohio State also probably.
I think I probably know what the answer to this one. Bucket list stadium and/or game day atmosphere.
Well,
yeah, I know.
You know where I'm going. I mean, an LSU Tiger right here. I know some people were trying to sway
stadium. We have any other Tiger fans? I went to LSU. Anybody? Am I alone here? Okay, I'm alone. Best stadium.
They were trying to sway me before Penn State whiteout. I had a couple of folks trying to lob in, hey, throw this on. But again, I got to just stay with what I really want, and that would be LSU Death Valley night game.
Yes. Mount Rushmore of college football players, the 4 best players ever.
And I'm going to do best players, not Heisman's, not championships. Cam Newton, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, Vince Young.
Yes, I like that.
That's Ryan McCormack, Senior Director of Factor and QQQ Equity Product Strategy at Invesco, speaking with Bloomberg's Christine Cook from Bloomberg Power Players New York on investing in college athletics. Up next, we go through some of the latest headlines in sports, including a big Saudi sports conference that didn't happen. I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. We haven't even gotten to the FIFA World Cup hitting the U.S. in 2026, and plans are already getting started for the World Cup in 2034. A part of that planning was supposed to be the World Stadiums and Arenas Development Summit in downtown Riyadh. It was scheduled for earlier this month, but it was postponed. Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo caught up with Bloomberg US sports business reporter Randall Williams to talk about the big Saudi sports convention that did not happen and some of the other headlines in the world of sports. Let's take a listen to their conversation.
Well, it sounds like this conference they were having is for in anticipation of the World Cup, right? They're supposed to have the World Cup, I think. I forget which year. It's
2034.
2034. Thank you, Vanessa. And they have to build a lot of infrastructure to handle what is going to be a huge, huge audience. And am I to believe that they're falling a bit behind the 8 ball here? I mean, what'd you learn?
I think World Cup preparations are hard anywhere outside of the U.S. The U.S. is naturally built for it because there's a lot of stadiums and things like that. But when you take this to other countries, I don't think it means that they can't do it. It just means that it requires a lot more money, a lot more commitment, a lot more labor. And there are some countries that are better fit for it, and there are others who aren't. And I think the Saudis can do it, just needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The Saudi World Cup is going to be similar to what we saw in Qatar in 2022.
Agreed.
It's going to be absolutely outstanding, and they're probably going to want to break that record, don't you think, for the most expensive World Cup ever?
This one is probably the most sustainable, the one that we'll see next year. But, I mean, you talk about brand new stadiums, brand new training facilities, probably hotel accommodations. It's a lot of money that's going to be spent there. No one's talking about it right now because everyone's so excited for next year. And then we have the 2030 World Cup after that. But Yeah, 2034, which I'm glad that is a long time from now because, I mean, you start talking about things and we were talking about the World Cup years ago and now it's basically tomorrow. So
Crazy.
Good ways away, but a lot of money to be spent between now and then. I think one of the, I wouldn't say issues, but one of the difficulties with sporting events in Saudi is just getting out there. I mean, from the boxing, from the UFC perspective, they've held events there, but a lot of times, like, it's a haul to get out there, and if you're only there for a couple of days, it better be some damn good business that you're doing. Otherwise, a lot of these sports companies, investors, business people are like, I don't know if I want to spend, however, I'll just say 16 hours on a flight. So I think there's things like that going on, but at the end of the day, money is money, and if the Saudis are paying as they are in a lot of sports, named golf and tennis and everything else, then this World Cup will come along just fine.
All right, Randall, as we talk about things that are going to be expensive and being built, you recently wrote about the Chicago Stadium for the Bears and Denver. They're now getting new stadiums. Tell us about that.
Yes, so the Bears made their move official. They're moving from downtown Chicago to Arlington Heights. There's some things that they have to work out there, but that is the site of their stadium they purchased. I want to say it's 300 acres. I think it's 326 acres in Chicago some years ago. That was potentially for building down there. Now it's official, so they'll be moving there. In Denver, they already have the land set up. This is another Walmart family that's going to be building, I believe they said
another Walmart family. Denver,
family.
Right?
Yes, a retractable roof. So that'll be, I think both of these stadiums will be super expensive.
Yeah,
super expensive.
I see Vanessa's eyes watering because this is the end of Soldier Field, right? I mean, 100 years and Windy City and all that stuff goes away overnight because, as you rightly point out, they're going to have a roof on that puppy one way or the other.
Yeah, I think a good portion of NFL teams are looking at stadiums and looking at them as multi-purpose facilities now. Both the Bears and the Broncos mentioned Super Bowls, and one of the jokes that I have in this newsletter is that it would be cold as Hellheim in both of those cities in February. But the reality is that in the NFL, if they move to 18 games or 17 games, either or, you host 8 or 9 home games a year. And so that's 9 dates out of a 365-day calendar. And if you have an open-air stadium, then you can't host a lot of events during the wintertime. And so what the Bears, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Browns, and so many other organizations, this isn't just specific to the Broncos and the Bears, but they're looking at, how can I make the most out of this money if we're going to be putting billions of dollars into it? And so a roof is the way that you can do that.
It is the way to do that, but at the same time, it makes me nervous that you say Super Bowl, right? Because the last frigid one was in Minnesota. You were at that one, right?
I was not at that one.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want us to be rolling up to a, Chicago Super Bowl in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that the Chicago Super Bowl, I believe Kevin Warren, Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren, wrote in his letter a 2031 date. I think that's a little bit ambitious. I do think that when stadiums get built, that the NFL does make an effort to show off these new facilities. And the way that they do that normally is you get a draft or you get another event there in your local municipalities first before you get a Super Bowl. So will the Broncos and the Bears eventually get a Super Bowl should their stadiums be built? I think so. How imminent is that? I would say 10 years out. I mean, you still have Nashville that has to be built. I think Jacksonville's getting a new stadium. Both of those will come first, and that's not even including, we still have SoFi and Allegiant. I think the Sports Business Journal reported a couple days ago that 2029 is looking like Vegas. Once the Titan Stadium opens up in Nashville, I think that's a new Nissan Stadium there, they're going to be bidding for a new stadium. And so at that point, you get to 2030, and now we're looking at 2031, and neither one of these stadiums have even started construction yet. Right. 2031 is ambitious.
But it's better for business, do you think? For the NFL's business of the Super Bowl week to host in warm cities?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about what is a destination, one of the reasons that Las Vegas and Los Angeles and so many of these others, Arizona, Jacksonville, Miami, all of these are destination cities because people want to go down in the middle of February and be warm. If you're going to Chicago, yes, that vibe is completely different. Minnesota and so many other places. Damian?
Here's the interesting thing, and you pointed out so clearly in your article, is these huge $5 billion, $4 billion new stadiums are being funded privately.
Yep.
And I think that is just fascinating. That means that there is an ROI for the debt and the equity investors out there for building these multi-purpose facilities. And so it's funny because there's been all this backlash against municipal taxes and taxing, locals to fund this. But I mean, how did the public sector mess this up? These were real investment opportunities that they're shooing away. We don't want to fund this. But obviously to a private investor, to real institutional capital, there's got to be something here now. No?
You have an interesting perspective there because I think that a lot of politicians would disagree with you there.
Interesting.
I think that there are a lot of politicians who don't, and granted, let me say this, I think the culture of sports depends on where you go.
Absolutely.
If you go down, if you look at Charlotte made a stadium and made a deal with David Tepper very quickly. Jacksonville made a deal. In D.C., Josh Harris made a deal.
Yeah.
But some of these cultures aren't, and some of these politicians in some of these cities don't have a lot of money, and Chicago is one of those cities.
One of them, yeah, for sure.
Now, in what both of them are saying is that they will be privately funded, but they won't be paying any new taxes. Now, Chicago has a lot to work out there. In Denver, I think things are a little bit more simple because, again, you have the Walmart family. Now, will Greg Penner come out and pay another $5 billion similar to what the Cronkies did in L.A.? I don't think so. But, hey, I don't know. Maybe he wants to build a state-of-the-art facility that will be $4.5 billion. I doubt it. But you never know. In Chicago, I think that it's a completely different issue because this isn't a Walmart family. And while they do have Greg Ryan as a part owner of the team, we don't know if Greg Ryan is going to be offering up any money for this. And the McCaskies are an older family. They aren't the biggest capital family in the NFL in terms of the cash that they have to spend on this. So Chicago has some work to do, but at least they've chosen a site.
It just feels like with everything that's happening in the NFL and really just in sports in general with new facilities and team valuations, that everything is chasing a record number. So
100%.
you don't think that these owners will want some sort of record when they're building these new stadiums?
No. And the reason for that, I mean, stadiums are the most expensive things for these owners to build by far. It's not even close. And the reality is there's not a lot of people who just have a lot of money to spend on these things. That's why private equity was brought in. That's why you see more transactions happening, because there are some owners who are looking for liquidity. Philadelphia is next. They've floated that around with their season ticket holders. And so I do think that there are owners who are willing to pay, but they see this as a public-private partnership. And sometimes their politicians and the people that live in the cities that their teams are in, they don't see it that way. And Kansas City is a perfect example. How many Super Bowls have they been to in a row? How many Super Bowls have they won in the last 6 years? 3 and I think 5 overall. And yet they couldn't reach a deal. Maybe that was because of the Royals, and maybe they'll be able to reach a deal in Kansas or in Missouri. We'll see. And I do think that they will get a deal done. But when you win 3 Super Bowls, I don't think that the common fan would expect like, oh, yeah, the Kansas Cityans, they did not vote for a new stadium there. That's kind of crazy.
Randall, we only have a few minutes left with you, and I can't let you leave without asking you about your favorite sport, and that sport being women's basketball. And Unrivaled just raised a new round of funding, which gave it a $340 million valuation. Now, Unrivaled is the women's 3-on-3 professional league. Breanna Stewart, I mean, talk to us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, they raised money. They're going to be adding teams. They're going to be touring as well. And, I mean, the business that they built in less than a year, really, has been remarkable. The ways that they have, in many ways, been able to empower WNBA players who are now playing for both of these leagues has been remarkable.
Are those players feeling that, do you think, new valuation, the players who got that initial stake in the league last year?
I don't know if the players got a payout out of this. I do think that Unrivaled has been strategic on offering equity to specific players so that they can attract more players. Now, who are the 2 elephants in the room that they're hoping to land? Obviously, it's Caitlin Clark and I would say Asia Wilson. Now, neither have committed to play yet, but they're doing just fine without them. So if they come in, if Caitlin Clark comes and plays in this, it's going to supercharge the league even more. They could be at $1 billion in a couple of years from now, considering that they've already hit $340 million in less than a year.
One of the things about Unrivaled was that it really empowered the players, like you said, and it was kind of putting pressure on the CBA. Now with this valuation, everything you know about the CBA, do you think it still has anything to do with it, any sort of pressure still at all, seeing this $400 million?
In some aspect, the CBA negotiations are independent between the league and the union, of course, but It definitely has informed the union as far as what value and what sort of business the players have been able to raise themselves. I mean, you have to remember that this is founded by Nafisa Collier and Breonna Stewart, two WNBA players who were able to do a lot of this business alongside the infrastructure and the support that they have. And so if two W players can do this, and the league, the WNBA, is supported by billionaires, and you have to imagine, like, the W players are then going back to the negotiating table and be like, okay, this is what we're hearing. And the W owners and I imagine their collective bargaining committee are saying, this is what we think is a fair deal. This is what we don't think is a fair deal. And we're going to find out on Halloween, which again is the most poetic date for CBA negotiations to potentially end, if they're going to be able to come to terms to a deal.
It's interesting because one of the reasons why I feel like, obviously there could be a lockout for all of the reasons that we know, but less detrimental because they have this league to play in, actually, where they're making $100,000.
In some aspect. I mean, the player population is a little smaller, but I do think that there are more opportunities here than there were a couple years ago. And that's a huge factor in things.
Randall Williams, chairman and CEO. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Senior business reporter.
I think I'm just U.S. sports business reporter, not senior yet, but thank you.
That's Bloomberg US sports business reporter and friend of the show, Randall Williams, speaking with my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo. Up next, we hear from PGA of America CEO Derek Sprague as part of a special conversation from Bloomberg Power Players New York. I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. Recently at World Headquarters in New York, Bloomberg hosted Power Players. It's an annual event that brings together some of the most influential in the world of sports to talk about what's next in the industry. PGA of America CEO Derek Sprague was at this year's event and spoke with Bloomberg Texas Bureau Chief Julie Fine about one of golf's most iconic competitions, the Ryder Cup, and continuing to grow the game of golf. Let's listen in.
Looking at golf now, you've got 18 to 34-year-olds playing like they've never played before. Women, that demographic growing exponentially. So how do you capitalize on this moment in golf?
Well, I think with all the programs that the PGA of America does, helps with the retention in the game, helps with the growth of the game. Since the pandemic, when we haven't used the word social distancing in a long time, but where you could get families together, playing the game together, and we've seen this multi-generational growth, getting the parents and grandparents, getting the younger generation into the game. So we've seen that explosion. We have more golfers today than we've ever had in the game. Close to 28 million people in this country are playing the game. 550 million rounds of golf were played last year.
And all eyes, of course, will be on the Ryder Cup and Bethpage Black. This really gives you a good opportunity to show what you can do at the PGA of America. PGA America, of course, that represents the teaching golf professionals. You are in charge of the Ryder Cup. You own and operate it. You own and operate PGA championships as well. So talk about how you can really expand your global footprint in a somewhat divided golf world.
Right. Well, again, the difference between the PGA Tour and the PGA of America is we own majors on every tour. We have a KPMG Women's PGA Championship, the Senior PGA Championship, the PGA Championship for the men, and of course the Ryder Cup being played sort of in the backyard here of New York City. So really, when you look at that, and the Ryder Cup really is the global event, if you will, with Europe against the Americans here. And that really, when we look at the economic impact that the Ryder Cup will be this year, we have 260 corporate partners. 30 of those are global from around the world, where you normally don't see that at any of the other championships.
And you've been to 9 of them, 9 Ryder Cups. So can you talk a little bit about that, how you're seeing more of that global footprint there?
Well, I think, when you look at the European team that was just announced on Monday, we see those faces every week, playing the regular tour. We see them in our majors, and of course we'll see them at the Ryder Cup. So, yeah, exactly. Those, the global impact of those players playing around the globe, it just helps grow the game globally. And economically, what do you expect to see, especially in this area? Well, I think, the this will generate close to $200 million economic impact just in this 1 week here. They're building a small city out of Bethpage Black there. And this is an incredible stat. We had 500,000 people pre-register to get tickets for the Ryder Cup. Just to show you the unprecedented demand for this event. We had over 30,000 people apply to be a volunteer at this year's Ryder Cup. And we put close to 4,000 people to work building this small city out there. So it's a huge economic impact. Golf is a $102 billion a year industry, and the PGA of America is doing its part, especially with the Ryder Cup.
I want to talk economically about the changes that you've seen. Again, you've done 9 Ryder Cups up until now. I want to talk about how the differences you've seen in terms of what people are willing to spend, the global aspect of the entire thing and the fan experience.
Well, I think corporate America and fans alike love live sporting events. That's what we're sort of in the business with our 4 spectator championships. And the corporate environment, their clients and their employees want to have those sort of experiences that you can't find anywhere else. Attending a Ryder Cup, attending a PGA Championship, one of our majors, really provides an experience for those corporate partners and their clientele. So we're on the right path. It's been booming. I've been involved for a number of years now, as you mentioned, and the product has changed a little bit. We have triple deckers, so we have 3-story high tents and out of Bethpage and 2-story venues there as well. 74,000 square feet of retail. I mean, it's really an incredible city that they're building out there.
We frequently talked about the changes that you see in the game of golf. Largely the biggest one, of course, is the LIV Tour. Now, while your tour is different than the tour that represents the elite pros, what do you see the trajectory of this?
Well, I think it's, again, we're 2 different organizations. The PGA of America has allowed the LIV players to play in our major championships in the Ryder Cup. And we have Bryson DeChambeau as a LIV member. We'll be playing on our American team this year. But yeah, I think it's shed a lot of light on the elite sport in the game, and I think that's helped put a lot of eyeballs on golf. I think it's helping the retention rate, and certainly these pros have benefited for large purses. That has put some focus on the associations and the PGA Tour and the partners, the corporate partners coming up with these large purses. So, but I think again overall it's great to include the LIV players in our championships, because the golf consumer wants to see the best players in the world, and they can do that at the PGA Championship and this year's Ryder Cup.
So in that aspect, you're seeing them play together in certain tournaments, and the bigger names of golf are in both. Eventually, do you think that they merge? If you had to pull your crystal ball out, where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be more of a question for the tour, but I think it's too early to tell. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter that there probably won't be any reconciliation, but I think that's okay. I think now we got a new CEO at the PGA Tour that I've already met, Brian Rolap, and he's my counterpart, and we've already been talking about ways to make sure that we strengthen the game at the elite level. So it'll be good to work with him.
Well, when you look at the technology, when you see, I mean, obviously you can see in your office, I assure you can see everything right and wrong with your swing. But is there also a time where you got to get out on the course and really look at your game?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's neat about PGA Frisco and our headquarters there, when our partnerships with the Omni Hotel Group, and we have 2 amazing golf courses. We have our 27 PGA Championship coming up there. We had our women's and our senior PGA already there in 23 and 25. So we literally have a golf course out our back door. So these associates come in and train. We have 300 employees that love the game of golf as well, and they can literally go out, they can hit balls on the driving range right out our doors, or they can go play a couple championship golf courses. We got a short course right there, and we got a 2-acre putting green. All the short course and the putting green are lit, and just adds to the fun of the sport.
Do you see a world where golf more broadly embraces rule changes or different formats? Like you see things like the match, and they're playing at night. I mean, do you see shorter rounds, more sim-based content?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what is golf, right? And if you, sort of the National Golf Foundation is our research arm for the industry, and it used to be, well, we're just going to count 18-hole rounds. But, if you play 9 holes, is that a round of golf? If you play a short course like called the Swing at PGA Frisco, we have our finance group every day goes out from noon to 1:15 and plays the quick 10-hole loop. Is that golf? Absolutely. So I think these varied forms of golf, whether it's on course or then at sites like Topgolf where it's off course, I think all of that is part of the sport and part of the lure of it. And I think you're seeing people go from their couch and video games to maybe these Topgolf venues to on course, whether it's short course, 9 holes or 18 holes. So yeah, it's all golf, and we're helping develop all that in many aspects.
In an era where we are seeing more and more private equity in sports, what kind of pools do you think golf should be looking at to increase revenue?
Well, I think, certainly with great assets like the Ryder Cup and PGA Championship and our other majors, the seniors and the women's, private equity is getting into all types of sports right now. SSG just got involved with the PGA Tour a little over a year ago. And so because golf and the demographic that it represents in the world, like I said, is a $102 billion industry. So private equity is looking to see how they can get in that industry as well. So I'm sure that's why SSG got in with the PGA Tour, and these other private equity companies are getting involved with other sports to sort of see how they can grow those products and improve them.
10 years from now, what do you see the game of golf looking like, both economically and sports-wise?
Yeah, I see it's going to continue to grow. Just 10 years ago when I was on the board of the PGA, it was an $82 billion industry. Here we are 10 years later, it's 102. I can see that being north of $120, $130 billion industry that we're in. And it'll be interesting on the sports. I think people will continue to love to attend live sporting events. I think you'll see your corporate environments on these small cities that we build will change over time. They'll probably get higher end. I mean, at this year's Ryder Cup, we have VVIP experiences where we're going to helicopter people in from the city, and backdoor entrances and stuff. These people want this. There's a lot of wealth in and around live sports, and certainly with golf, and it's helped us shape our corporate hospitality products at our venues.
Before I let you go, I do want to know, you played golf with a lot of people. What is the most unique round you've ever played? Well, I've been fortunate enough to play with a lot of tour pros, and this will probably be a boring answer, but anytime I can play with my kids, my family, is really a joy. And I can remember walking down the fairway with my son, who was 16 years old at the time, and I said, we can play this sport for another 70 years or so. My grandfather took up the game of golf at age 74, so anybody in the audience out there, is never too late to take up the sport. But I've had the good fortune to play with great players like Bernard Langer. When you talk about longevity, right? And that guy's in his mid-60s, I think, and can play as good as the best players in the world. And he is so disciplined in his workouts and his game of golf, but also with his family and his faith and stuff. And I can just remember when I played with him, just in awe, this guy he's like, he's German, so I said, he's just like a German automobile, finely tuned, finely engineered, and he was just a joy to play with, and such a gentleman that I really remember that round of golf with him. And I can't ask you to pick your favorite course, because I know that's challenging, but certainly your most memorable one that everyone here that plays golf or enjoys it should make sure to get to. Yeah, right here in your backyard, Bethpage Black is just incredible. As Keegan said, our captain, it used to be New York's course as a public park, but it's going to be America's course here in a few weeks. But I've had the good fortune of playing some of the finest private courses in the world. I love playing. I played Cypress Point, hearing the ocean crashing in and the seals barking on the rocks out there was memorable, because they have a lot of inland holes as well. So you go from hearing the ocean to very peaceful and then ending near the ocean. That was pretty memorable.
That was PGA of America CEO Derek Sprague on stage with the Bloomberg Texas Bureau Chief Julie Fine. If you want to hear more from power players, check out the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast feed. Some of our most recent editions have several conversations from the event, including conversations with two-time WNBA champion and four-time Olympic gold medalist Sylvia Fowles, Aries Management co-founder Michael Barr, and 5-time NBA All-Star New York Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns. Check it out now, wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And that does it for this edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports. For my colleagues Vanessa Perdomo and Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports, Bloomberg Radio around the world.